Hi book lovers, my name is Natalie. I love books, so let's talk about them. All right, so today we're talking about my reading goals for 2020. I don't have a lot, and I'm gonna kind of explain why my videos have been kind of like sporadic. I mean, not sporadic. I think I've been uploading one a week since January, but I wanted to explain that, and I think this is a good video to do that with. So my reading goals for 2020. So originally when I sat down and I wrote out what this video was going to be and what I wanted to do for 2020, one of the things I wanted to do, well, two of the things I wanted to do was I wanted to go back and I wanted to read middle school favorites. Read some of those favorites that I just really loved. I feel like middle school was an area where I really found some of my favorite books. And so I wanted to go back and I wanted to reread those and see if they still held up for me. And do that as a series on this channel. And then another thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to do a year of Stephen King classics. I feel like when I go and I look at lists of Stephen King books that you must read, I always wind up like, oh, well, I read that one, but I haven't read that, or that. Stephen King is just really a very prolific writer, let's be honest. And I always feel like I've not read any of his classics, even though I have, I've read, The Shining. I don't know what is up with my voice. I'm just hoping that the microphone is catching me. So, I've read The Shining and I've read it and I've read Insomnia, which is not one of his classics, but I've read several of his classics. But then there's always things like The Stand, which I read halfway, but I never finished, or The Gunslinger, which I've never read, or Misery, which I've never read, The Green Mile, I've never read that, The Dead Zone, just those early 1970s ones. And so, and part of that is because at one point I was reaching for a lot larger books, and his books fit that. He had those 1,000-page books. I was just such a fast reader that the larger the book, the better it was for me, because I was buying my own books with my allowance. But there seems to have been a lot of like classics that I haven't read. So like I said, The Gunslinger, Misery, The Dead Zone, The Green Mile, just things like that I want to say that I have read. So that way I can stop looking at those lists and be like, how can I have read all this Stephen King and still not read those? Anyway, I get heated over it, man. But anyways, so those were two things I originally wanted to do for the year, in addition to reading the books. And I'm going to go through what I finally settled on as my goals. But I did discover, I sat down, hold on, there we go. I sat down and I was reading one of my middle school favorites, and I kept thinking about the 228 books that I had on my Kindle that I wasn't reading that I could be reading instead. I have nothing against rereading. I think rereading is great. My hair, guys, my hair. Anyway, I think rereading is great, but I was sitting there and I was thinking, I've got all these books that I should be at least attempting, and I'm not. I'm sitting here rereading this book and I just wasn't feeling it, It's guilt I impose on myself. I'm fully aware of that, and it's fine. It's a bad hair day. Can you guys tell? That's why I put this thing on. But, But yeah, it was self-imposed guilt. So I was like, well, what's going to make me feel better? To force myself to read this book that I'm just not reading because it had taken me 2 weeks and I was only 30 pages in. Or to go and read some of the other books that I should be reading. And there's a kitty. So I decided that it would make better use of my time and would help me reach my goals by reading the books that I wanted to read, that I felt like I needed to read. So the goals that I settled on for this year was I would like to read 200 books this year. I know that's quite lofty because I didn't even make my goal for last year, which was to read 100 books, but I tend to always kind of like miss my goal, but just by a few. when I'm really like striving for it. So I was like, well, if I shoot for 200, maybe I'll reach 100 or 150 or something like that. And that would make a sizable dent in the books that I have. You know, and I kind of gave myself the guideline of 150 of those books should be books that I own currently. And then 50 books can be like books from, the library. You know, maybe I'm looking through my books and I'm like, I just don't want to read any of these books. Or I watch a booktuber and they're like, oh my gosh, you got to go out and read this book. I know a few graphic novels that I've seen, that I've heard of, that I just desperately want to read. They look so good. So I didn't want to like lock myself down to only books I owned. However, I'm also trying to make sure that I don't put new books to read on my Goodreads right now. I have my bullet journal, and so I'm writing like new books to read there. So basically, I'm trying to make sure that my like list gets smaller. You know, my to be read gets smaller. And then at the end of the year, my pet kitty, at the end of the year, we can add those other books in. So I think that's basically it. That's my only goal, is just to read 200 books, and hopefully going through those, you know, 200 books. I have a wide range of books on my Kindle and that I own. Oh no, kitty, no, don't do it. Don't do it. Come here, come here. Okay, you can go that way. Just don't mess with the camera. And hopefully reading those wide range of books, I've got sci-fi on there, I've got romance, I've got fantasy, will just kind of help me reconnect with what I like to read. I feel like, you know, since college, which has been quite a while ago for me now, but since college, I got out of reading, and I still am not reading the way I used to read. And for me, reading is my happy place. Like if I'm doing a lot of reading, I feel good. You know, I don't have as much anxiety and that kind of thing. And when I'm not doing it, it's kind of like a momentum thing. If I'm doing it, I'll keep going. And if I'm not, or if I'm not enjoying it, I won't keep going. So I'm trying to, you know, get back to that, get back to reading a lot more than I have in the past. You know, looking at my Goodreads, I looked at it and it's like 36 books, 26 books. And I know for a lot, you know, there are some people for whom that is a lot of books. I don't want to downplay. I don't want to make it ever sound like, you know, not reading like 100 to 200 books is just subpar at all. No. But for me personally, I can read a lot more than that. And I think I would be happier reading a lot more than that. I think I've just kind of gotten out of knowing what I like, and, you know, really being able to read the back, you know, the back cover of a book, the synopsis of a book, and going, oh, I would like that one for sure. And I think I just need to kind of reconnect with that, reconnect with who I am and who I am now, instead of trying to go back to who I was like in my 20s or in my teens and reading those books. Not that those books don't still hold like there's fun there for me, but, you know, I'm 38. So obviously I've grown past some of the things that I used to like, and that's okay. I mean, we all do. You know, it's fine. So yeah, so those are some of my goals for this year. I think that's about it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciated it. If you like that video, give me a thumbs up. You know, if you're not sure about my content, there will be a couple of videos in the end card for you to watch. And if you are enjoying my content, hit that subscribe button. You can always unsubscribe if you don't like it later. So, all right, guys, thank you so much. I really appreciate you. And bye.